Ever catch yourself thinking about, just how much power your mind really has?
It's a question that's fascinated people for, well, probably as long as we've been able to think.
Right. And today we're going to sort of take that question head on, looking at how our minds can be both a source of illness and a key to healing.
And our guide for this exploration is going to be You Are the Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Welcome to Between the Lines, the podcast that sparks curiosity and expands your mind. Join us as we explore fascinating ideas and knowledge.
Okay, so Dispenza makes this pretty bold claim. The placebo effect, something you might usually associate with fake treatments in medical trials, is actually pointing to this incredible power we have within us to influence our own health.
And he's not alone in this thinking, Look at the endorsements for this book. Bernie Siegel, Mona Lisa Schultz, Greg Braden, Don Miguel Ruiz. These are heavy hitters in the fields of mind, body, medicine, and spirituality.
Yeah, it's a pretty diverse group of thinkers, too, which suggests that this idea of the mind's power to heal really resonates across different disciplines.
Absolutely. And for Dispenza, this isn't just some theoretical idea either. He actually shares his own personal story of healing from a severe spinal injury, multiple fractures without surgery, just by using the power of his mind.
I mean, can you imagine, getting that diagnosis and then saying, nope, I'm going to heal this myself?
Well, there was definitely skepticism from medical professionals, but the amazing thing is, after 9.5 weeks, he was walking again. It really makes you wonder, what are we capable of if we truly harness the power of our minds?
So the book is divided into two main parts, right?
Yeah, and the structure is actually quite clever. The first part is all about information, giving you a solid understanding of how the placebo effect works, the science behind it. And then the second part gets into the practical application, focusing specifically on meditation as a tool to actually enact these changes.
So we're going to follow a similar path in our conversation today, starting with, part one, the power of belief.
Exactly, because belief seems to be the cornerstone of this whole idea of the mind influencing health.
So let's jump into some of the evidence, the stories, and see how belief plays out.
Sure. One of the most striking stories Dispenza talks about is a man named Sam Lond. In the 1970s, he was diagnosed with incurable esophageal cancer, given very little time to live. But here's the thing. He ended up living for years and years beyond that initial prognosis. Now, we can't say for sure that it was solely due to his mindset, but it certainly makes you think about the role his beliefs might have played.
It really raises the question, doesn't it? How much influence do our expectations actually have?
Well, there's a pretty compelling study on antidepressants that sheds some light on that. What researchers found is that a good chunk of the participants who were given a placebo, about 38%, still reported feeling better.
Wow, so even though they weren't getting the actual medication.
Exactly. And it wasn't just them saying they felt better. There were actual physical changes in their brain activities, specifically in the prefrontal cortex, which is an area that tends to be less active in people with depression. And the changes they saw were similar to the group taking the actual antidepressant, where around 52% showed improvement.
So basically, their belief, their expectation of getting better actually created real, measurable changes in their brains.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right? And it really blurs the lines between what we think of as purely psychological and what's happening physically in our bodies.
Definitely. And then there's that classic story of Mr. Wright and Krebiosin. His case has been studied for decades. Mr. Wright had cancer and was given this experimental drug called Krebiosin. He believed in it wholeheartedly, and his tumors dramatically shrunk. He was up, moving around, feeling great. But then news broke that Krebiosin was actually ineffective.
And almost immediately, he relapsed.
But then his doctor, knowing how powerful Mr. Wright's belief had been, told him that the initial batch of Krebiosin was faulty, and he was now getting a new, improved version.
Which was actually just distilled water.
Exactly. And guess what? Mr. Wright went back into remission. It wasn't until he fully accepted that Krebiosin had no real power that his cancer finally progressed again.
This story is a textbook example of how powerful our expectations can be in shaping our physical reality. It's as if, in a way, his belief became the medicine itself.
It's incredible. And this concept goes beyond just drugs, right? There was that fascinating study on sham knee surgery for osteoarthritis.
Oh, the one where they compared patients who got real knee surgery, either cleaning out the joint or flushing it, to a group who just had a small incision and were stitched back up, basically a placebo surgery.
Yeah, and the results were, well, shocking. Groups reported the same level of improvement in their pain and mobility, even the ones who didn't have any actual surgical intervention.
It seems like the belief that they had undergone a beneficial procedure played a huge role in their recovery. It makes you wonder how much of our own healing from any kind of ailment or injury might be tied to our faith in the treatment, you know?
Totally. So we've seen how powerful belief can be in creating a positive healing effect. But we also need to talk about the other side of the coin, the nocebo effect, where negative expectations can actually make you sick.
That's right. The nocebo effect is like the evil twin of the placebo effect, and it's just as powerful in demonstrating how your mind can influence your health, just in a negative way.
Like, for example, the anticipatory nausea that many chemotherapy patients experience.
Exactly. A significant number of these patients will start feeling nauseous, even vomit, before they even receive their chemo treatment.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's often triggered by certain sights, smells, or even just thinking about the chemo, all because they have this expectation of feeling sick. It's like their bodies are already responding to a future event based solely on their anticipation.
So it's not just a physical reaction to the drugs themselves.
Not in this case. It's a conditioned response, a learned association between the cues and the anticipated feeling of nausea.
And this nocebo effect can manifest in even more dramatic ways, right? The book mentions some pretty intense examples, like the impact of voodoo curses.
Right. The research of Walter Bradford Cannon on voodoo death is fascinating and kind of disturbing. He looked at how a deep belief in a curse, especially when combined with social isolation and ostracization, could actually lead to physical decline and even death. It's as if the power of suggestion, coupled with that feeling of being doomed, triggers a cascade of negative physiological effects.
I mean, that's scary to think about, the power of belief in that context, but it also speaks to the incredible influence our social environment can have on our health, too. On a slightly lighter note, there's also that poison ivy experiment with churro.
Ah, yes, where they took a harmless leaf and told these kids it was poison ivy. And guess what? A bunch of them developed a rash, even though there was no actual irritant present. It just goes to show how powerful the mind is, how it can create a physical reaction based solely on what we expect to happen.
So it really seems like our beliefs, whether they're positive or negative, can have a tangible physiological impact. But how does this actually work? Like, what's the mechanism behind it?
Well, Dispenza dives into the physiology of belief, and he really breaks it down into three main components: conditioning, expectation, and meaning.
Okay, let's unpack those.
So conditioning, you can think of Pavlov's dogs, right? Every time they heard the bell, they expected food and they started salivating. Similarly, if you consistently receive a treatment, even if it's just a sugar pill, your body can become conditioned to respond as if it's the real medication. That's part of how the placebo effect works.
So it's like our bodies learn to associate certain cues with certain outcomes, even if those cues are essentially neutral.
There's a long-term study from the Mayo Clinic that found that people who were generally optimistic, who tended to expect positive outcomes, reported better physical and mental health over the years. It's like your mind is constantly priming your body for what it anticipates will happen.
And lastly, there's meaning, which feels a little more abstract.
Meaning is all about the interpretation you give to a situation or experience. It's about the personal significance you attach to it. So, for example, if you deeply believe in the healing power of a specific practice, or you have immense faith in a certain doctor, that belief can enhance the positive effects. The meaning you give to the intervention becomes part of its power.
So it's not just the intervention itself, it's the context, your understanding of it, that shapes your response.
Precisely.
Now, the book also delves into the biological mechanisms involved in all of this, talking about neuroplasticity and epigenetics.
These are really crucial for understanding how the mind can bring about such significant changes in the body.
So just to refresh our memories, what are neuroplasticity and epigenetics again?
Neuroplasticity is basically the idea that your brain is not fixed, that it can change and adapt throughout your life. It can form new neural pathways based on your experiences and thoughts. It challenges the old notion that we're hardwired a certain way.
So it's empowering. We have the ability to actually reshape our brains.
Absolutely. And then there's epigenetics, which is even more mind-blowing. Epigenetics shows us that our environment, including our thoughts and emotions, can actually turn genes on or off.
Wait, so our genes aren't necessarily our destiny?
Not necessarily. While you might have a genetic predisposition to certain conditions, whether or not those genes are actually expressed can be influenced by your experiences, including your mental and emotional states.
That's pretty revolutionary.
Think about Norman Cousins, who healed himself from a debilitating illness using laughter and a positive attitude. It's highly likely that epigenetic changes played a role, basically turning down the disease-causing genes and turning up the healing genes.
That's a powerful, real-world example of how a shift in mindset can literally translate into biological changes.
And there's that study from Japan where they had diabetic patients watch a comedy show. Compared to a control group who just listened to a health lecture, the group who laughed actually showed increased activity in genes related to immune function and improved blood sugar control. It suggests that even positive emotions can trigger beneficial changes at a genetic level.
Wow, so your internal state is constantly in communication with your genes.
Exactly. It's all interconnected. And the book also brings up the influence of stereotypes on performance, which is another example of how expectations can have a biological impact. Studies have shown that if you're exposed to negative stereotypes about your group's abilities, it can actually hinder your performance. It's as if those negative expectations create a stress response in the body that undermines your capacity to succeed.
It all circles back to this idea that our thoughts and beliefs shape our reality, from our brains to our genes.
And Dispenza talks about this cycle of thinking and feeling that can keep us stuck in negative patterns. He explains how repetitive thoughts lead to consistent emotions, which then reinforce those same thoughts, creating this feedback loop.
So you get trapped in this cycle.
Exactly. If you're constantly dwelling on negative thoughts, you're more likely to experience negative emotions, which will then feed more negative thoughts, and so on. It can keep you anchored to the past.
And he introduces this idea of the body as the unconscious mind. Like, our bodies actually store these emotional patterns.
That's right. Our bodies become conditioned to these familiar emotional states, and they start to drive our reactions, often without us even realizing it. To break free, we need to become, in his words, greater than our body and its embedded emotional memories.
So how do we do that?
Well, that's where the second part of the book comes in, and the answer is meditation.
Ah, yes, the practical application.
Meditation is presented as a powerful tool for shifting your brainwave state from that reactive beta state to the calmer alpha and theta states. And these slower brainwave frequencies make it easier to access your subconscious mind and create lasting change in your beliefs and therefore your biology.
The book is filled with amazing stories of people who have experienced profound healing through meditation. Like, there's Joanne, who was paralyzed in her legs and regained the ability to walk after just one meditation session.
It's pretty remarkable, and research has shown that people who meditate regularly tend to have more balanced and coherent brainwave activity, which is generally associated with greater well-being and a sense of wholeness. There's also the story of John, who regained control of his bladder and bowel function and improved his motor skills after a spinal cord injury.
That's incredible.
And then there's Lori, who had a degenerative bone disease that she was able to reverse through meditation. It's fascinating because her healing wasn't just physical. Her entire sense of self shifted during her meditation practice, and when she went back for medical tests, her results were completely normal.
It's like her identity, her perception of herself, actually changed her physical reality.
Exactly. And Dispenza emphasizes the importance of clear intention, having a strong belief in the process, and being open to whatever outcome may arise.
So it's not about trying to force a specific result.
Right. It's more about aligning your conscious desires with your unconscious intelligence, creating a space for healing to occur. And when you combine a clear intention with a powerful, positive emotion during meditation, it can create a very strong signal that can influence your cells and even your DNA.
The book also briefly touches on the quantum perspective, which might seem a little out there to some, but it's definitely intriguing.
Yeah, the quantum perspective suggests that all possibilities already exist in this field of energy called the quantum field, and your mind, through your focused attention and intention, can actually influence which of those possibilities become your reality. It's about tapping into this field of infinite potential and collapsing those possibilities into the specific experience you desire.
So by focusing your mind on a desired future, holding that vision with strong expectation and feeling, you're essentially conditioning your body to that reality in the present moment.
That's the basic premise. By consistently focusing on that desired future in your thoughts and emotions, you're shifting your energy, and according to this perspective, you're influencing the quantum field in a way that can lead to the manifestation of that reality.
It's a pretty mind-bending way to think about the power of our thoughts and beliefs, but it also offers a sense of hope, doesn't it? Like we have more control over our lives than we might realize.
It definitely empowers us to become active participants in shaping our own reality. to realize that we're not just victims of circumstance, that we have this incredible capacity within us to heal and create the lives we desire.
So, to bring it all back to You Are the Placebo, the core message seems to be that we have this immense power within us to influence our health and well-being, for better or for worse.
Absolutely. And the placebo effect isn't just some weird quirk of medical research. It's a very real demonstration of our innate healing capacity, activated by our beliefs and expectations. Understanding how conditioning, meaning, and intention all play a role gives us a framework for taking a more proactive role in our health journeys.
It really makes you stop and think, how are my own thoughts and beliefs shaping my reality right now? And what possibilities could unfold if I consciously directed my inner world with more intention and belief? These are powerful questions for all of us to consider.
Definitely. This book is a call to action, an invitation to tap into the healing power that lies within each of us. It encourages us to become aware of our thoughts and beliefs, and to consciously choose those that support our well-being.
It's a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us as we explored this remarkable power of the mind to heal. We hope it sparked some curiosity and inspired you to look within and discover your own potential for healing and transformation. Until next time, keep those positive vibes flowing.
Thank you so much for your like. Please consider subscribing to our channel to keep discovering fascinating aspects of our minds, spirits, and existence. Stay curious. Expand your mind.